So what's going on, guys? DIY Dan here again, and this is another mechanical video. In this video, I had the coolant level low warning coming on my 2017 Chevy 2500 HD with the Duramax diesel engine. Now, obviously, the first thing you're going to want to check is your coolant level if you receive this message on your instrument cluster. However, I did that and it was full. There's also some possibilities of having faulty wires or pigtail ends that the wires have come loose or disconnected or pinched or cut that could cause this to come up as well. However, the most common cause for this coming up on your instrument cluster is the float switch or low coolant level switch / sensor that is molded into the reservoir, making it unserviceable, so you have to replace the entire reservoir. Now, does it kind of suck that they made it so it wasn't serviceable? Yes. But the good news is that the tank really isn't that expensive, and these coolant reservoirs do tend to develop leaks when they get older anyway, so they probably should be replaced. When I originally saw where this was at underneath the hood, I thought, holy shit, this was going to be a pain in the ass, but it really wasn't that bad. It took me less than an hour to do, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, we are Amazon affiliates, and I will put the link to the reservoir that I used in this video to fix my problem, along with a couple tools that might make this job a little easier for you, in my description if you want to get any of those coming. Now let's get to it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is disconnect both ground cables off of both of your batteries in order to make sure you don't short anything out while you're doing this project. You will need a 10mm socket or wrench in order to disconnect those ground cables from the batteries. So right here, I'm disconnecting that ground cable from the driver's side battery, and then I went over to the passenger side and disconnected that one as well. So there's two ways to go about getting this coolant reservoir out of the vehicle. Option one is removing the airbox from the vehicle, and that is the option I went with because it basically requires disconnecting one sensor and one hose clamp. The other option is to completely remove the passenger side battery straight up and out. By removing the airbox, I was able to slide the battery towards the front of the vehicle, so I did not have to disconnect all the extra cables going to the power distribution located above the battery. So you'll just have to judge which way you want to go about it. So right here I am removing the airbox from the vehicle. Basically, to remove the pigtail off of the mass airflow sensor, there's a little red plastic clip that you will have to pull back. When pulling that back, you should hear it click. It doesn't go very far. Then you're going to need to squeeze the locking tab on that pigtail while pulling and wiggling, and it should pop off of there without a problem. Once the mass airflow sensor is disconnected, you will need to remove one hose clamp that connects the airbox to the intake tubing. Once you've got the hose clamp loose, all you have to do is leverage the accordion boot off of that airbox, and then that airbox will lift up and out of the vehicle. And whenever removing the airbox, I do like to take a look down that accordion tube and in the air filter box to make sure no dirt has been passing past the air filter. Once that was done, I removed the reinforcement brace that kind of bolts above the battery. In order to do this, you will have to remove the weather stripping from the passenger fender by lifting it up in the back a little bit and pulling it towards the front of the vehicle. You will need a 13mm socket to remove this bracket. The one bolt is basically right on the firewall, and the other bolt is right underneath the weather stripping that runs along the fender for the cushion for the hood. There was some other stuff attached to it. I didn't feel like removing it, so I just set it off to the side. After that, I disconnected the top half of the power distribution from the bottom half. There's just some plastic clips that you kind of leveraged out a little bit, and it should pop right off of there. Once the top is removed, then you can take that 10mm socket and remove the main power cable from the battery, which will allow you to remove the bottom half of the power distribution from the battery. And just like the top half, there's some plastic clips that hold the bottom half to the battery, and you just leverage those out a little bit and lift up, and it should come off of there. There was not enough slack in that power distribution to get the battery out yet, so I did have to remove the top hose from the coolant reservoir bottle. Once disconnecting that hose, it gave me a lot more slack in order to peel back those items a little bit further to make it a lot easier to remove the battery. Now, you can use a regular pair of pliers in order to remove the spring-loaded hose clamps. However, I did end up buying a kit. It was right around 25, 28 bucks, something like that. And it makes it a lot easier to remove these clamps, and I do recommend getting it, and I will have the link to it in my description. So once removing that hose from the overflow bottle, you can see how much farther I was able to pull the support bracket and the top of the power distribution up and out of the way a little better. Then using a 13mm socket with about a 10-inch extension, I removed the battery hold down, which is on the engine side of the battery, right at the bottom of the battery. Once removing the bolt, you should be able to just lift the plastic hold down up and out of the way. Now, during the process of doing the rest of that, I did manage to push one of those clips back into place over the battery. So I did have to leverage one of the 3 clips that was holding it back off before lifting it up a little bit. And then I was able to pull the battery out through the front where I removed the air box. And basically, I just left it sitting in there because I knew it was going to be going right back in. Once the battery is out of the way, there's only 1 bolt, 1 hose, and 1 electrical pigtail to disconnect in order to remove that reservoir from the vehicle. And right here, I used one of my brand new tools for removing those spring clamps. I thought this was pretty cool because it actually holds the spring clamp open so you can let your hand off of that tool and remove the hose separately. And right here, I'm going to let you listen to the actual event as it's happening because I did something pretty stupid here. And as I do with all my videos, I let you guys know when I make mistakes, so hopefully you guys don't make those same mistakes. Probably should have capped that. Hey, babe. Babe. So yeah, I actually forgot to put a drain pan under the vehicle when doing this, so I managed to spill about a gallon of coolant all over my garage floor. And yes, my wife was in the garage for 90% of this project until I actually needed her. Once realizing she wasn't coming, I did try and let go of that, go grab a drain pan really quick, and it finished about 5 seconds before I got the drain pan under the vehicle. Then I went ahead and removed the 1 bolt that was holding the reservoir to the vehicle, which used a 13mm socket. Disconnected the electrical pigtail going to that float switch or low coolant level switch, and went ahead and removed the reservoir from the vehicle by pulling it out a little bit and then up. So because I couldn't get a good video of removing that electrical pigtail, I figured I'd explain it real quick. So here is a better view of the actual sensor / switch, and you'll notice the little raised tab on this sensor. Now, this is not the exact pigtail that plugs into that sensor, but the concept is exactly the same as what I'm showing you. So on this pigtail end, you'll notice this section of the pigtail. Basically, you have to get your hand or finger or screwdriver underneath this tab and leverage it up a little bit while wiggling and pulling on that pigtail, and it will come off of the sensor. Which is exactly what I'm doing with my index finger there. You just can't really see it that well. Once I had the old coolant reservoir out, I did put it side by side with the new one just to make sure that everything was the same. That includes the location of the hose connections, the cap location, and the mounting hole location. It's also a good idea to make sure that the pigtail end is the same on the coolant level switch. So one thing you will notice about this coolant reservoir bottle is that it actually has 2 caps on it. Now, the one that is easy to see obviously is your fill cap. And its single purpose is to allow you to add coolant to your cooling system. It is also left-hand threaded, which means in order to remove it, you need to go clockwise. The other cap that is on this reservoir bottle is the pressurized safety cap, which is a 20 psi cap and is righty-tighty, lefty-loosey as normal things are. So for strictly curiosity reasons, I decided to cut this overflow bottle apart just to see the inside of it. The main reason I did this was because of the dual caps and the positioning of them. I thought that was a little interesting, but there really wasn't much to it. Basically, there was a bunch of baffles that were all connected with some type of a hole going between the compartments or baffles that were in that tank. I cut the section around where the actual low coolant level switch was, and it is a basic float switch, which means there's a ring that goes around the main body of the sensor or switch, and when the fluid level drops, that ring gets to a point where that sensor triggers that low coolant warning on your instrument cluster. I also took the pressure relief cap off, and you'll notice that that is just a very tiny hole that's actually giving that cap access in order to relieve the pressure off of the system if necessary, which I thought was a little interesting. All in all, it is just a very complicated, basic overflow bottle. Now with the new reservoir, even though the cap was on it, I did loosen it and then take it back tight just to make sure it was tightened all the way. And there is a little detented click that tells you you are tight. When installing the reservoir, there are two raised tabs on the bottom of the bottle that need to line up with two slotted holes that are in the plate underneath the reservoir. When installing the reservoir, make sure your pigtail and hoses are out of the way. Set it down in place and then push it back into those slotted holes that are on that plate. When you think you've got it, try and lift it up, and if it lifts up, then you did not get in those slotted holes correctly, and you can try it again. At this point, I decided to hook up the main hose to the reservoir that supplies the rest of the system. And as I said before, I think this tool is actually really cool because it held that spring clamp open the entire time. And I was able to slide the hose right on, and right here, I'm unclamping that tool and removing it from the hose clamp. Now, I've been in the mechanical industry for over 20 years, and I wish I would have bought this tool a lot sooner than what I did. Next, I went ahead and reinstalled the bolt that holds that reservoir in place and then tighten it down. At this point, I did decide to go ahead and open the cap and start filling the reservoir up so it could sit there and possibly work some air bubbles out of it while I was reassembling the rest of the vehicle. Stupid reverse thread cap. Dumb shit ever. But that's what it is. Now, I do understand why they put two different threaded caps on there so you don't possibly get them reversed. But how about you do the one that you never touch in the reverse thread so people don't get confused about it? After putting a gallon of coolant in it, I did grab that main hose and just squeeze it a handful of times, because sometimes squeezing that hose, because it basically pressurizes and then creates a vacuum, will help remove any small air pockets that might be in that hose and get them to the reservoir. Then I plugged in the pigtail for the low coolant warning level sensor. When plugging that in, you should hear the detent of that locking tab on the pigtail locking over the tab on the sensor, telling you you are in correctly. Then it was time to slide the battery back into place by lifting up the power distribution, sliding it underneath, and clamping the power distribution back over the top of the battery. There are some tabs on the bottom of the power distribution that line up with some holes in the battery to make sure it is lined up and will snap in correctly. When you have it in correctly, you should hear the detent of the locking clips snapping into place. Once the lower part of the power distribution is snapped into place, you can go ahead and reinstall the main power cable going to the positive of the battery and tighten it down. I did most of it with the battery ratchet, however I did double check it with a 1/4-inch ratchet afterwards. At this point, you should probably put your battery hold down back in place and tighten it down, but I forgot to do that. Instead, I decided to go ahead and put the upper part of the power distribution back into place and snap it down, and reinstall the small hose going to the upper part of the reservoir bottle. I reinstalled the reinforcement bracket that went from the firewall to the fender well, and tightened both of those bolts down, once again using the battery ratchet and the 13mm socket. After tightening that down, I reinstalled the weather stripping on the fender well. There is a slotted hole in the fender well that lines up with a tab on the weather stripping, and then it slides in from the front to lock it in place. So the video clip of me installing that didn't come out too well at the time of, so here's a video clip of me doing it after it was all said and done. Once the weather stripping was reinstalled, all that's pretty much left to do is install the airbox. There are a couple tabs on the bottom of the airbox that line up with holes that are in the bracket that supports the airbox. And before installing that air filter housing, make sure you look inside of it and make sure you're not bypassing any dirt or debris, because that is the quickest way to ruin an engine, and it could be just something as simple as the air filter was installed wrong the last time it was changed. I've also changed out an air filter that had an actual hole in it from somebody damaging it during installation. So right here, I'm just installing the air filter housing, pushing it down into place. I did use a little hook to help get that accordion boot over the intake. Once the accordion boot was in place, then I just lined up those two tabs. It can be a little tricky to get it popped down into place, but you should be able to tell when you have it in correctly. Once the airbox was in place correctly, then I went ahead and plugged back in the mass airflow sensor and clicked the little red tab locking clip back into place, then tightened down the hose clamp using a 5/16 socket and a ratcheting screwdriver. Make sure you do snug that hose clamp down really well, because you do not want to get any dirt entry or debris in there from not tightening it down enough. and make sure that the rubber boot is fully around and correctly installed on that airbox. I've seen an entire engine have to be replaced because somebody forgot to tighten down a hose clamp in a similar situation. After that, I went ahead and hooked up the ground cable on the passenger side battery and tightened that down, and that's when I realized that I had not put the battery hold down clamp back in place, which is something I should have done sooner so there wasn't as much in the way. So this did prove a little challenging, but I was able to get it in place and tighten it down. So this is about 3 minutes worth of video, shortened down to about 20 seconds because of the fact that I forgot about doing this earlier, which made it much more of a pain in the ass. So right here I'm just tightening it down with that extension and that 13mm socket. Then I reinstalled the ground cable on the driver's side battery and tightened that down. I did top off the coolant one more time. Make sure you match whatever is in that vehicle. I'm using a universal gold coolant, which will go with either the green or the red coolant. And because this was the first time filling it up, I did fill it all the way to the top of the reservoir and then went ahead and put the cap back on. Then went on a little test drive and kept an eye on that temperature to make sure there wasn't an air pocket that might cause it to overheat. Once returning and letting it cool back down, I did check the coolant reservoir one more time to make sure I was still topped off. I did end up overfilling it a little bit on the final time that I added coolant. However, that's not a big deal because it will just puke out or spit out whatever it doesn't need and be topped off. So that is going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and it gave you some good information. If so, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it. The whole concept of my channel is to give you guys the most information in the least amount of time as possible so I don't waste your time. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Later.